Okay, good morning. Man, we've got this lighting again. The morning lighting is so contrasty and squinty. Yeah, so it's wild how the basics come back after a while. You like do a practice or do training or study and learning as well. And the you go down layers of experience or something. And I think it's actually the same with even like crafts and stuff or skills or trades or maybe even careers. I don't know, I don't have a career. But, like with meditation, the core principle is about observation. Any kind of meditation, it's all about cultivating the observation and the ability to observe and the observer itself, to put it lightly. But then, with Qigong, like you go through all these other practices and all these other foci and things to think about and develop or whatever, Like in Jining Qigong, there's the first method's mostly about exchanging energy between the body and the world or the universe, internal and external. And the second method is all about the body's energy. And the third method is about the internal organs and emotional energy. But then when you come back round to, you kind of, progress kind of goes in spirals. Like you go up, but then you kind of come back round to the same point, but it's at a higher level. Or you could think about it as depth as well. And I've been doing the second method, which is the body stuff. But the observation in the body is so rich. Like, the body not as the body, but as an opportunity to observe, or a space of observation, or a type of observation. Yeah, so what I was really going to talk about today was taking things for granted. Which sounds like a real cliche. I don't think I ever use that phrase. But cliches come from somewhere, And it's easy to dismiss them, but then when you actually look at where they apply, they kind of just, they're cliches for a reason, lol. But like I've been thinking a lot about how people believe that the body is the body and the body is a thing. Like you've just got this body and that's what it is. And when you feel good, that's good, you must be healthy. And when you feel bad, maybe you're sick or something. Without really breaking down the implications of those things. Like what is causing balance or imbalance in your body or in your life. And it's the same with anything you can think of, like with the things that you're doing, like work or something. If you treat it as work, then it's really easy to dismiss it or oversimplify it, Oversimplify it in a positive or negative way. And I think it also applies to how people struggle to develop skills and develop a perspective or develop ideas. Because if you believe that your arms are just arms and that's just what they are. Like, what you're able to do with them is just what you've got. Then you'll stay at that level. But if you can see that they're made up of matter, at least, different kinds of matter, then you can start to think about how you might apply that arrangement of matter, or those arrangements of tissues and sinews and whatever, to do things with your hands. Cooking and baking bread and carpentry and farming, or even just using your phone or writing. Maybe, yeah, like... And it's really obvious that people who get good at something, which most people do, I mean, most people are good at something, even if it's... What's the word? Kudaranai? You know. Bullshit. But so people who get good at something, it's really clear that their body is developing in accordance with that thing. Like, 5 years ago, I almost went into this traditional carpentry building company to do like serious training in traditional Japanese building. But then Corona happened and they weren't sure that they were going to have work for me. But, you know, the carpenters' bodies and senses, as well as obviously their minds or, you know, mental mechanisms, are so tuned to all the things that are required to do this really fine and subtle woodwork. You know, like, they can sense things that you or I wouldn't sense because we haven't gone through the experience that develops that sense. And the opposite way of saying that is that you don't have the senses if you haven't gone through the experience that develops that sense, i.e. the things that you experience are almost definitely limited to what you've experienced. I mean, like, that's like that's like psychology NLP 101. But, you know, like, I bake bread, and I'm not like the most amazing baker or anything, but compared to when I started, the relationship with the bread is completely different. Like, you can just tell when it's the right consistency or when it's going to be a good rise or not. There's like that's why I really like this word kankaku in Japanese, which generally is translated as sense, but it's more like, it's like an internal register. You know, like, I don't know, it's almost like a different form of knowledge, I think. Like, when I started thinking about it was when my grandma-in-law said that she couldn't do the manual car anymore because she had lost her kankaku for it. You know, lost the feel for it. And it's like, there's things that you can't do with your mind and with your knowledge. You have to develop the kankaku for them. And I think we're kind of losing that. We're running too many things just on mechanisms and systems, and getting out of touch with the things themselves. Which I think ultimately means we get out of touch with ourselves, because if we're not there being in relationship with something, you know, like, if I never made my own tea, you take it for granted. I would take it for granted because I wouldn't have the understanding of what makes it good or bad, or You know, it's like a shallower relationship with things. Like, it kind of puts me off when people are like a real connoisseur about something, but they buy all the things for it. You know, like coffee, like being a real connoisseur about different beans from different places and different roasts and shit. And tea as well. But it's like, you just know where to buy good beans. You just know where to buy different kinds of beans. Like, there are always deeper and deeper levels of engagement, I guess is one point. And anytime you think you know something, what you know really is the image. What you're really experiencing all the time is your body's reaction to things. Like, as I was doing my Qigong practice this morning, and watching my body start to tense up because I thought something was going to happen. But there's something happening. You know, like, I can't remember exactly what it was. I was lifting my hands up above my head and I was like, oh, my shoulders are tense or whatever. But that idea is actually just a habit in the body. My shoulders going tense for whatever reason. But then that's how I read the situation. Like, if you go into a situation and you get anxious, you're reading the situation as the reaction that you're having to the situation, which is a habit, is being taken or presumed as a necessary part of the situation. And that's how we start to label situations as good or bad or scary or dangerous. Which is taking things for granted, like it's presuming what's going to happen. And it really takes the fun out of things. It also, you know, I mean, it's the idea is that you make things safe by making them familiar, which is not the worst thing in the world. But shutting yourself off from new experiences and excitement and potential, part of which is a bit of risk, is kind of the worst thing in the world. Because, like, what is the point of you living your life if you're not having experiences? You know, if you're not living your life. But if you can turn off that automatic interpretation, you know, the autopilot interpretation of what things mean or what the consequences are going to be, I think you open up a whole another layer of enjoyment of, you know, like of your body, of your environment. Because, you know, the body becomes an experience. All the things happening in the body become new information. The way the body's responding to the environment becomes new information and becomes interesting and exciting. And then it means, like, the function of the body is also leveled up because you're using it for more dynamic and more varied things. Like, if I'm... One thing is if you're just processing everything in your head, it's a strain. No wonder everyone's so anxious and depressed. But if you can process more things in your body, like it's like having a more highly developed device for understanding the world and experiencing the world. Like, like you've got, like in a submarine, you've got all the like switches and all the charts and stuff. Speed and pressure and depth and whatever. And I think that also connects to your sense of creativity with life. The more dynamic your interpretation of life is, the more dynamic engagement you can have with the experiences that come up. And like if the functions in your body and mind are more dynamic, and there should be a whole lot of different functions going on in your body and your mind. And they should ideally all be counterbalanced with each other. And when they are is when you can make more dynamic action in the world. Which is really what makes your life cool. Like, having a more dynamic output is also going to generate more dynamic input, because people are going to see that there's something new there to engage with and come out with their new responses or new forms of engagement because there's something new to respond to. But if everyone's taking the patterns for granted, this is just the way it has to be, then people can only respond in a really basic way. That's not true. People can respond, people can always come up with new responses to old things as well. But it does present a certain limitation. Like the response is expected. So how can we step out of the things that we take for granted, like the interpretations that we take for granted? Good question. I think we have to know that everything we experience is a certain form of packaging in that way. It's not, it's the finger pointing at the moon. It's not the thing happening. It's a pre-interpreted representation of the thing happening. It's a clue to what's happening. And then with all the different clues, you can kind of start playing with figuring out what's happening behind those clues. And the other big element is observation itself. So not only looking at the clues and engaging with the clues, but just looking, just observing, not even looking. The looking and hearing is something that you're observing. And there's a whole range of other stuff going on in there that isn't looking and hearing that you're observing, or that you could be observing if you're not completely distracted by the things you assume are happening in the world based on your imaginary images of the world. But the way that I like to think about it, that I think is cool for me, is that, you know, everything that you see, if it's pre-packaged by your conscious or subconscious, however you want to think about it, what's in that package? Everything is an opportunity to, you know, it's like a vessel for meaning. And what have you put in that vessel for yourself to find? Like, everything takes on meaning. If you can see it, it's got meaning. But you've got to do the looking or the observation to get in touch with that meaning. It's actually so much like a video game. And I know I'm like not into this whole thing of everyone talking about the Matrix. Putting that completely to one side. It's so much like a video game that like you can wander around and open boxes and smash vases or whatever to see, to find treasure. But the mode of observation or of looking or searching, and the mode of the way of opening things, and then also the meaning in things, is so completely personal. You know, I couldn't necessarily tell you exactly how to unlock the meaning for you in this little milk jug. And smashing it physically is not going to get you there either. It has to be something you have to really put yourself into. You know, you kind of have to take a leap of faith in terms of observation and letting meaning unfold. Which comes back to letting go of those assumptions and interpretations, taking things for granted. Because they become like a wall. Your kind of screen of reality becomes a wall against real reality. You know, this Lacan quote that I refer to often is that the function, you know, the role of the subject is to isolate the function of the screen and play with it. And I don't know how much that needs unpacking for people. But the screen is your, you know, movie screen of reality. It's the thing that everything is projected on, and that presents reality to you, but also blocks you from accessing the real. And the element of play is so important too, because I don't think you can get there just through serious work or unpacking, deduction. You have to play with the function, you have to let it be there too. You can't just be like, no, yeah. Zen, for example, is like, no, just no representation. None of it's real. We'll just go direct to the source. So that is one way. It doesn't seem like it works for most people though. Or yeah. But I think it's enough to be like, okay, that absolute is there somewhere. In there somewhere. But at the same time, I can enjoy the way my world is set up. It's so much like a symphony or a dance, how these rhythms flow in and out of life. And that rhythm itself, the signature or the motif is always you, like your wavelength or your essence. And that's what we're trying to unlock. That's where all the treasure is. And it's woven into the way that we experience everything. So I think there is value in that experiential information. It's just about not getting stuck on the representation and looking for what it represents. Because then you develop the deeper kankaku for the deeper material, which is where all the stuff that you want and need is stuck. Okay, it's been nice talking to everyone. Just saying. I'm gonna now go and... What am I doing? Make a pie. Make a meat pie. And also a salad and clear up the kitchen. Cafe life. Inffinite Caffe. Okay. Talk to you soon, bye.